Hey, you deaf or just dumb? The voice sliced through the air like a whip, sharp, loud, ugly. Jamal Hayes had just stepped out of his pickup truck, the sun warming his shoulders, a rare peaceful Saturday after months on duty. He hadn't even closed his door before the yelling started. He turned slowly, calmly, the kind of slow turn that came from training, from knowing that sudden movements escalate things, from knowing that danger isn't always foreign. Sometimes it lives. In your own country, your own streets. Across the lot, a white man stormed toward him, red-faced and loud, dragging a woman with him. The man looked like he had something to prove, chest puffed out, fists twitching at his sides, eyes burning with entitlement. The woman. She looked worse. Her face was twisted with disgust, and before she even reached him, her finger was already jabbing toward his chest like a dagger. You think you can just park there? The man snapped. That spot's for veterans, not freeloaders. Jamal said nothing. He glanced back at the sign in front of his parking space. It read clearly, "Reserved for U.S. military veterans." His plates had the emblem. His windshield displayed the badge. His heart carried the proof in ways neither of them could ever understand. The woman stepped in closer, invading his space, eyes narrowed to slits. "What's the matter, huh? Can't read English? Or maybe you're just used to taking what doesn't belong to you?" Jamal's jaw clenched. He'd just come from a 12-month deployment in Djibouti. He had seen children lose limbs. He had pulled bleeding brothers from burning trucks. He had swum through pitch-black waters with bombs strapped to his back. And now he was being screamed at in a mall parking lot because he was black. "I served," Jamal said finally, his voice low, steady, controlled. But they weren't listening. The woman scoffed. The man laughed bitterly. "You? Served? Don't make me laugh," the man spat. "You don't look like a SEAL. You look like a thug. One of those street punks pretending to be a soldier to get a discount." Then came the line. The woman leaned in close, her breath hot and acidic. She pointed again, her finger nearly touching his neck. "This is our country, monkey. You don't belong here. Go park somewhere else, or better yet, go back to wherever you came from." Time stopped. Jamal didn't blink, didn't move. He just stared at her, not with anger, not with fear, with something colder, sadder, the kind of look that says, "I've seen worse. I've survived worse. But you? You don't even realize the weight of what you just said." He looked around. People had started to watch. Phones were coming out. Some were whispering, but no one was stepping in. "Not yet." The man took a step closer. "You hearing me, boy?" And that word boy hit harder than a slap. Jamal could have said a lot. He could have listed his medals. He could have told them about Operation Phoenix, about how he'd held his dying teammate's hand while keeping his other hand on the trigger. But he didn't, because the truth was, he didn't need to prove himself to anyone, least of all to them. Still, something in him shifted. He looked down at the woman's finger, still trembling in the air, and then raised his eyes back to hers. Calm, calculated. "You've got about 7 minutes before this moment changes your entire life," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The man sneered. "What the hell's that supposed to mean? Is that a threat?" "No," Jamal said, glancing at his watch. "It's a countdown." Confused silence. And that's when something rare flickered across the woman's face: doubt. She pulled her hand back, just slightly. The man didn't. He doubled down. "You trying to intimidate us? You think a watch and a t-shirt make you somebody? You're nothing, you hear me? Nothing but a lying, lazy." He never finished. A car across the lot suddenly revved to life, a sleek black SUV, then another. Two large vehicles pulled around and parked behind Jamal's truck in perfect formation like a convoy. Doors opened. Boots hit pavement. 6 men stepped out, all wearing Navy service uniforms, broad-shouldered, clean-cut, silent, focused. One of them, a tall man with silver stripes and eyes like steel, walked straight up to Jamal and saluted. "Commander." "Hey, sir, we're early, ready when you are." Jamal returned the salute, calm as ever. "Appreciate it, Chief." Silence fell over the lot like a blanket of snow. Cold, sudden, total. The woman's mouth dropped. The man's hands went limp at his sides. He looked around at the uniforms, at the badges, at the watching crowd now recording everything with trembling hands. "You." The woman stuttered. "You're really, yeah," Jamal said, finally turning to face them fully. "I'm a Navy SEAL. I've served 3 tours, 2 Bronze Stars. I've fought for this country more times than you've probably recited. The Pledge of Allegiance." The man took a step back, pale now. The woman's eyes darted around, as if looking for a way out of the parking lot, out of the shame, out of the story now being recorded for the whole world to see. But there was no escape. Jamal stepped past them, heading toward the SUV. But just before he got in, he paused, looked back. "You asked who I am," he said, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. "You'll know soon. The whole country will." Then he got into the vehicle, closed the door, and was gone. Back in the lot, the couple stood frozen, the weight of their own words finally beginning to sink in, and somewhere in that silence. 7 minutes had just begun. The air in the parking lot grew thick, as if the sun itself had paused to watch. Jamal's warning 7 minutes still hung in the air, but neither the couple nor the gathering crowd truly understood what it meant. Yet, instead, the man laughed, a sharp, mocking sound, the kind of laugh that hides fear behind arrogance. "You don't scare me, tough guy," he sneered, taking a bold step forward. "You think we care who you pretend to be? My tax dollars probably pay your food stamps." The woman hadn't stopped recording since she pulled out her phone, but she was only filming Jamal. She angled her camera just right, cutting out her own jabs, their aggression, their slurs. "Get this," she whispered gleefully. "Let's show everyone what kind of animal we're dealing with. Maybe we'll go viral." Jamal stood still. His breathing was steady, years of military training pulsed beneath his skin. He'd been taught how to handle insurgents, how to detect landmines in darkness, how to survive captivity for days without food or sleep. But nothing ever prepared you for the kind of quiet rage that came from being attacked in your own country. By people who never saw the uniform, only the skin. The man's hand shot out, shoving Jamal hard in the chest. Jamal didn't move. He didn't even blink. But the crowd gasped. That wasn't just confrontation anymore. That was assault. Then came the spit. A wad of hate, launched from the woman's mouth, hit the side of Jamal's shirt. His jaw tightened, not because of the humiliation but because he knew what would happen next, and it wouldn't end well for them. Phones were everywhere now. Half a dozen bystanders were filming. Some were whispering among themselves, "Isn't he military? That guy looks familiar. This is gonna blow up." But no one stepped forward. "Not yet. You got 5 minutes left," Jamal said, calmly wiping his shirt without looking at them. The woman laughed. "Who do you think you are, counting down like we're supposed to care? You're not in Iraq, soldier boy. You're standing in a Target parking lot. Nobody's coming to save you." Jamal turned his wrist and tapped his watch. The same one he wore during every combat op, the same one that had once counted down the seconds to detonation underwater. "Didn't say I needed saving," he said. "I said things are going to change." The man circled him now like a wolf trying to impress the pack. "Oh, I get it," he said with a smirk. "You think your little street gang's gonna roll up? What, are we supposed to be scared of a bunch of thugs in hoodies?" Jamal's silence was louder than anything he could have said. From the edge of the lot, a mother with a stroller turned and walked away quickly, muttering to her child not to look. An elderly man shook his head, clearly uncomfortable, but the tension only fed the couple's aggression. "This is what happens when you let them in the military," the woman shouted. "They start thinking they're above the rest of us." He probably forged those badges anyway. That was the last straw for one of the onlookers. A teenager no older than 16 raised his phone and yelled, "Lady, the guy's a Navy SEAL. Look it up. Jamal Hayes. He's a hero." But the man wasn't listening. Fueled by ego, alcohol, or just plain hatred, he took another step forward. "You know what?" he growled. "Maybe someone like you needs to be put back in his place." He raised his hand, not in a punch, but something more humiliating. A slap. He meant to degrade, not injure. But the hand never landed. Jamal's right arm moved fast, precise, not violent, just controlled. He grabbed the man's wrist midair, twisted gently, and brought it down by his side. "4 minutes, Jamal whispered. The man yelped in pain, but didn't fall. Jamal let go as soon as the threat was neutralized. But the woman, infuriated now that her husband had been touched, lunged toward Jamal with her phone like a weapon. "I'm calling the cops," she shrieked. "You just assaulted my husband. I'm gonna make sure you go to jail, thug." Behind her, someone in the crowd called out, "You might want to get your facts straight, lady. We're all filming too." The woman turned to the crowd and, for the first time, noticed the dozens of lenses pointed not at Jamal, but at her. Her expression faltered. "You think anyone will believe you?" she snapped, unsure now. Jamal looked up at the horizon. The rumble of engines, faint, getting louder. He checked his watch again. 3 minutes, he murmured. The crowd stirred. Heads turned. In the distance, two matte black SUVs rounded the corner of the mall lot, moving fast but clean. No screeching. No sirens, just precision. "Is that the police?" someone asked. "No," another man replied, staring intently. "Those are military tags. That's..." "Oh damn, those are SEALs." Panic bloomed on the woman's face like a virus. She started backing away. "Wait. What's going on? Who are they?" Jamal didn't answer. He just stood still, watching as the SUVs approached. His presence alone, unmoved and resolute, now felt terrifying to the couple. They weren't dealing with a hot-headed civilian anymore. They had tried to humiliate a soldier, and now the consequences had arrived. The vehicles stopped. Doors opened. 6 uniformed men stepped out in unison. Their posture was unmistakable. These weren't mall cops or wannabe guards. These were operators, trained, dangerous, loyal. One of them, a tall, broad-chested officer with stripes on his sleeve, locked eyes with Jamal. "Commander Hayes," he said with a nod. "Right on time." The crowd gasped. The woman dropped her phone. The man stepped back, almost tripping over the curb. Jamal finally looked back at them. "2 minutes too late," he said softly. "Karma's early today." The 2 black SUVs came to a clean stop, synchronized like a military drill, blocking off the parking lane with quiet authority. Their windows were tinted black, and the engines cut off in eerie unison. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't loud. It was precision. It was control. It was the unmistakable arrival of something bigger than justice. Discipline in uniform. Jamal didn't turn to look. He didn't need to. He already knew who had arrived. The weight of their presence filled the air before a single door even opened. To him, this wasn't unexpected, it was timed. One by one, the doors clicked open. Out stepped 6 men, not in combat gear, but in full navy dress uniforms, their shoes polished to a mirror shine, brass buttons gleaming under the midday sun. Their postures were flawless, back straight, chins up, shoulders squared like the storm had been waiting for its cue. The man who had attacked Jamal just minutes ago backed up fast, his voice cracking. Who the hell are they?" he stammered, now visibly shaken. "Are they cops? No, that's military." The woman grabbed his arm, her voice barely a whisper. There with him. He wasn't lying, but Jamal still hadn't moved. He let the moment breathe, let the weight of 7 years of service speak louder than any argument. The crowd around them fell into a respectful hush, cameras still rolling, expressions turning from curiosity to awe. Even the bystanders who had moments earlier been silent observers now felt like they were witnessing something far more significant than a parking lot altercation. From the group of SEALs, one stepped forward, Chief Petty Officer Grant Rowe. He was taller than the rest, older, with silver streaks in his temple and eyes that had seen too much. He carried no weapon, no threat, just a quiet fury that came from watching a brother be disrespected. He walked up to Jamal, stopped 2 feet in front of him, and saluted with slow, deliberate motion. "Commander Hayes," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "we're early but standing by. The car is ready when you are." Jamal finally returned the salute, his voice calm. "Appreciate it, Chief," the crowd murmured. The man in the blue shirt who had called Jamal a freeloader, a thug, a monkey, now looked like he wanted to disappear. But it was too late for that. "Wait a second," he tried to say. "We didn't know he was military. We thought you thought he was what?" Chief Rowe turned slowly to face him, his voice like stone. "Not worthy of standing in that parking spot. Not worthy of being treated like a human being? Like a citizen? A soldier?" The woman began to shake her head, stammering. "We didn't mean." "Don't," Rowe snapped, raising a single finger. "Don't insult us further by pretending ignorance. You didn't just yell. You didn't just accuse. You degraded. You spat. You assaulted." He pulled a phone from his pocket and, without another word, tapped play. The sound of the woman's voice, cruel and unmistakable, came blaring through the speaker. "This is our country, monkey." The crowd gasped. Someone cursed under their breath. A mother shielded her child's ears. The couple froze as the gravity of their words echoed back at them. Now no longer controllable, no longer one-sided. "Jamal doesn't have to explain himself to you," Chief Rowe said, holding the phone out. "But just so we're clear, that entire interaction was recorded by his lapel cam. And now by everyone here." He looked around the parking lot. Phones were everywhere. Dozens of witnesses, silent, watching. The court of public opinion already forming its verdict. "And just for context," Rowe added, eyes narrowing, "the man you attacked today has completed over 30 classified missions, saved the lives of his team multiple times, and risked his life for a country that people like you weaponize with hate." The man tried to open his mouth, but there were no words now, only fear. Just then, sirens wailed in the distance. Police. A patrol car pulled in fast, lights flashing, sirens blipping off as it skidded to a halt. 2 officers jumped out, hands already moving to their belts. Rowe stepped back, allowing the officers to assess. He didn't need to interfere. Justice had already arrived. Now the law would follow. Who made the call? One officer asked. Multiple civilians, someone said from the crowd. "And we've all got video." Jamal nodded, finally stepping forward. "I'm the victim of verbal assault, physical contact, and harassment based on race and military status. There's full footage from my body cam and theirs," he said, motioning to the crowd. The officers looked stunned. But it was the uniform and the composure that left no room for doubt. "Sir," one of them said, turning to Jamal, "would you like to press charges?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to the couple. The man had tears in his eyes now, not from guilt, but from panic. The woman clung to his sleeve like a drowning victim grabbing driftwood. You tried to humiliate me, Jamal said quietly. In front of strangers, in a parking lot I earned the right to park in. You judged me on the color of my skin, not the weight of my service. And worst of all, you weaponized your privilege, thinking the world would take your side. He took a breath. The world's watching now. Then he looked to the officer and gave a simple nod. Yes, I'll press charges. The officers moved swiftly. The man protested. The woman sobbed, but it didn't matter. Handcuffs clicked shut. The crowd began to clap, not wildly but slowly, purposefully, with reverence, not just for Jamal, but for justice done right. The couple was led to the back of the patrol car. Jamal finally walked toward the SUV where his team waited. Chief Rowe opened the door. Still want to make that charity event? Jamal gave a half smile, now more than ever. And as he climbed inside, the door shut with a soft thunk, sealing the moment. The SUVs pulled away from the lot, leaving behind the echoes of something rare in today's world: dignity defended, and karma delivered in full uniform. By sunrise the next morning, the world had already changed for Jamal Hayes. What began as a hateful encounter in a suburban parking lot had turned into a viral phenomenon, igniting a global conversation that neither he nor the racist couple could have ever predicted. The footage, raw, unedited, damning, was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. The moment the woman spat at him, the man's shove, the slur that burned like acid, the calm defiance on Jamal's face as he counted down, and the arrival of the Navy SEALs, marching like justice in human form. It played on a loop across millions of screens, accompanied by hashtags that carried a message far louder than fists ever could. Hashtag Navy SEAL Jamal, hashtag served with honor, hashtag ThysisRealAmerica.it. Wasn't just the internet that reacted. Veterans organizations released official statements of support. Military forums lit up with messages like, "We don't leave our brothers behind," and "He showed more restraint than most of us ever could." Active duty soldiers and retired generals tweeted their solidarity. Even public figures, actors, athletes, politicians began to weigh in. But while everyone else shouted, Jamal remained silent. He wasn't chasing fame. He didn't care for applause. In fact, he turned down every interview that came his way. Major networks sent reporters to his neighborhood. Producers called him. Around the clock, podcasts begged for an exclusive, but Jamal answered none of them. His silence only made people more curious, and somehow more respectful. Because in a world addicted to shouting, his calm felt revolutionary. But that didn't stop the media storm from brewing. News anchors broke down the confrontation frame by frame. Legal analysts dissected the charges the couple now faced: racial harassment, public disturbance, and assault on a military officer. Civil rights advocates applauded how Jamal had de-escalated without force. Psychologists praised his self-control, saying he displayed emotional intelligence under attack. Even educators began sharing the video in classrooms to talk about race, respect, and what it means to serve with dignity. And then came the post. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't branded, just a simple black and white photo of Jamal in uniform, standing in front of an American flag, posted quietly on his old Facebook page, the one he hadn't used in years. The caption was only one sentence: "The uniform protects the country, but it doesn't always protect the man inside it." Those 15 words shook people to their core. Within minutes, the post had over 100,000 shares. By noon, it had crossed 1 million. People commented from all over the world: soldiers from Germany, doctors in Kenya, students in Brazil, even an old woman in rural Alabama who wrote, "My grandson died in his uniform. Thank you for wearing yours with grace." Some wept. Others raged. But all agreed on one thing: Jamal hadn't just stood his ground, he'd reminded the world what it meant to stand for something. Back in his quiet apartment, Jamal watched none of it. He kept his phone on silent, the blinds drawn. He wasn't hiding. He was reflecting. He thought about his teammates, the ones who'd come to his side that day without needing to be asked, the ones who'd seen combat with him, bled beside him, and still showed up for a parking lot confrontation just because they knew what it meant. Brotherhood wasn't a concept to them. It was a code. He thought about his grandfather, to a Vietnam vet who'd once told him, "You can serve your country all your life, but some folks will still only see your skin when you come home." Jamal used to think those words were outdated. Now he knew better. They were prophecy. But even as his name lit up the news cycle, Jamal refused to be reduced to a headline. He wasn't interested in being the black Navy SEAL who got harassed. He wasn't a symbol. He was a man, a soldier, a citizen. A reminder that dignity is not something others give you, it's something you claim and carry, even when the world tries to strip it away. And while he stayed silent, the world kept speaking. One tweet from a 19-year-old college student went more viral than the news itself. It read, "They tried to shame a hero. He showed the world what real strength looks like." That tweet alone was shared by thousands, reposted by celebrities, even printed on protest signs across cities. In Chicago, a mural artist painted a 30-foot wall with Jamal's image in full uniform, his eyes calm and resolute beneath those same words. And somewhere along the way, the conversation shifted. It wasn't just about Jamal anymore. It became about every black veteran who had ever been questioned, every immigrant who'd served but was treated like an outsider, every woman in uniform who'd been disrespected, every quiet hero who had come home only to find they were still fighting. Jamal had lit the match. The world carried the fire. Schools began organizing seminars on unconscious bias and racial profiling. A local legislator even drafted a proposal nicknamed the Hayes Bill, aimed at increasing penalties for racially motivated harassment of active military personnel. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe which Jamal never asked for raised over $400,000 in a matter of days, all under the banner, "Honor the Man, not just the uniform." Jamal planned to donate every cent to a foundation supporting veterans with PTSD and racial trauma, because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about attention. It was about something deeper: accountability, grace, and truth. And truth, the unfiltered, painful, powerful kind, had finally gone viral. It had been 2 weeks since the confrontation, but the echoes of that day hadn't faded, not from the internet, not from the headlines, and certainly not from Jamal Hayes' life. Everywhere he went, people seemed to recognize him now, not because of his medals, not even because of his uniform, but because of the way he'd stood in silence while the world watched him endure something he should never have had to. Jamal never asked to be a symbol. He just wanted peace and quiet. Return to a life of ordinary things, walking without stairs, buying coffee without assumptions, existing without explanations. But peace rarely comes quietly for men who've carried the weight of wars, especially when the battlefield follows them home. That morning, he stepped into the same mall for the first time since the incident, the same parking lot, the same entrance, same coffee shop, same barista, a young woman with kind eyes who used to treat him like just another customer. Now she froze slightly when she saw him, her expression torn between recognition and reverence. "Your usual, Commander Hayes?" she asked, voice a little hushed. Jamal smiled softly. "Please, just Jamal." As she prepared his drink, he noticed a folded note tucked under the register, sealed with a paperclip and his name scrawled across the front in shaky handwriting. She hesitated for a second, then slid it toward him with both hands, as though passing something sacred. She dropped it off yesterday, the barista said. "Said you'd be back eventually." Jamal took the note, thanked her, and stepped to the side. The mall buzzed with its usual rhythm: strollers, shopping bags, holiday decorations already going up. But for him, the world narrowed to the weight of the paper in his hand. He unfolded it slowly, the creases forming a cross in his palm. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was wrong." Rebecca, no excuses, no justification, just those 3 lines, handwritten, unadorned, and far too late. Jamal stood there for a long moment, reading it over and over, not because he needed to believe it, but because he needed to feel something about it, anything. But all he felt was stillness, not anger, not satisfaction, just stillness. He tucked the note into his jacket, walked back to the counter, and asked for a pen and napkin. The barista handed them over without a word. Jamal wrote just 14 words. "Forgiveness is earned. Start by seeing people as humans, not threats." He folded the napkin and handed it back. "If she ever returns," he said, "give her this." The barista nodded solemnly, already knowing that the napkin held more than just ink. It held truth. It held restraint. And maybe, just maybe, it held redemption. What Jamal didn't know was that someone standing nearby had captured the moment. On their phone, the exchange of the note, the expression on his face, the grace in his silence. That short clip would later be posted online with a simple caption: "Even after everything." He chose compassion. Within hours, it had more views than the original confrontation. People around the world shared it, dissected it, cried over it. And once again, Jamal Hayes found himself at the center of a conversation he never meant to start, about humanity, justice, forgiveness, and what real strength actually looks like. Not the kind that flexes or yells or demands revenge, but the kind that absorbs cruelty and still chooses grace. In the days that followed, more came to light about Rebecca, the woman who had spit on him. She had lost her job at a luxury real estate firm. Her face had been plastered across news reports. She was doxxed, humiliated. Her husband left town. Her teenage son stopped speaking to her. The world had turned on her with the same speed and fury she once turned on Jamal. Some said she deserved it. Others said it was too much. But Jamal didn't comment. Not once, not online, not in person. He had already said everything he needed. In a parking lot, in a single napkin, in the way he never raised his voice even when the world gave him every reason to. Then came the day that shocked everyone. A local high school invited Jamal to speak. Not about military service, not about politics, but about what to do when you're wronged. The auditorium was packed not just with students, but with parents, teachers, veterans. Cameras rolled. Journalists waited. Jamal stepped up to the podium. The room fell silent. I was taught how to survive combat, how to disarm bombs, how to fight in darkness, he began. But nothing prepared me for fighting a war I didn't choose, one waged in silence, in suspicion, in prejudice. He paused, letting the silence deepen. But I learned something else too, he continued. Sometimes justice isn't about punishing someone. Sometimes it's about reminding them what being human looks like. He didn't name the couple, didn't retell the event. He didn't have to. Everyone already knew, but what he offered instead was something rarer, a lesson, a mirror, a call to something higher. And in that moment, he wasn't a viral hero. He wasn't a victim. He wasn't even a Navy SEAL. He was just a man, teaching a room full of strangers how to be better, outside. The auditorium that night, someone pinned a sign to the wall. It simply read, "He fought hate not with fists but with honor." And perhaps that was the final twist no one saw coming, that the most unforgettable part of the story wasn't the confrontation, the arrests, or the viral fame. It was what happened after. It was the way Jamal chose grace when the world would have handed him vengeance. And in doing so, he gave everyone watching something they hadn't expected to find in a story like this: hope.